we got here. We got through it. Aunt helped us out. We are on the air live. Hey, Mom, how you doing? So I'm going to take you on a little journey today. Try to get through this without hostages, without injuries. We'll see how we do. First of all, I just want to give you a quick breakdown. I'm gonna read one at you real quick, and I'm gonna explain to you. I'm just gonna give you a little story. I'm not gonna bore you all night, but I'm gonna give you a little story as to why I'm reading that, and then I'm gonna tell you the rest of my story through poems. But the first one here, like I said, I'm just gonna read this real quick, and I'll explain this why I'm doing this. So, she said that I was distant. But she never understood that the thoughts plaguing my mind were not the kind to be shared with friends or lovers or enemies. And the more she tried to reach me, the more she tried to teach me, the more she tried to impeach me for my dalliances, the more I had to shield her from the ugliness of my obsessions. She said that I was immature. But she never even noticed that I saved her from her job, from her friends who were leeches and slobs, from her family mob, and most of all, from herself. And the more she tried to age me, the more she tried to change me, the more she tried to engage me, the more I had to withdraw to maintain her delusion of self-sufficiency. She said that I was moody. She had no fucking idea. She was oblivious to the radical notions that floating through my mind as she continued to find ingenious ways to grind and bind and confine every dream within my soul. And the more she tried to invoke my wrath, the more I found that silence was my only source of control. She said that I was cruel. But she would not admit that the worst crime I could possibly commit would be to allow us both to continue in this zombified state that we both inhabited, too mindless to split. And as the circular ritual of our lives became ever more ingrained in our soulless bodies, I had no choice but to use whatever means necessary to break that cycle. She said that I was apathetic. Now, I'm not too big on $10 words, y'all. But if apathetic means that I was not sympathetic to the notion that everything between us in our relationship was copacetic, then yeah, I guess I was apathetic. And as she punched and prodded, kicked and screamed anything to get a reaction, she found that my responses never offered her traction. She said I was arrogant. Hell yeah, I was arrogant. But my arrogance only shielded me from the most vulnerable, the most palpable, the most contemptible of my weaknesses, and the more combustible of her backlashes. And the more she tried to humble me, the more she became an affront to me and a symbol of everything that I used to be. And I knew then and there that we were history. She said I was not the man she fell in love with. But she knew that man was a fiction, replaced by a man with too many addictions, suffering from peculiar afflictions, and too committed to his own convictions. And when she left me in the ring against the Superman of her dreams, she found that the victor was someone who made her scream-ish. She said, I can't really remember everything that she said. I don't actually want to remember anything that she said. All I know is that she said, and she was right. So why do I do that poem? Didn't even care enough to memorize it right, but that's the first poem that I did in about 20 years. The first time that I ever got up at Cypher. Before I got up at Cypher, I had just been getting divorced and kind of figuring out what the hell I was going to do with my life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to hang out or who I wanted to be friends with. And I saw that they had this open mic poetry thing going on at Cypher, and I said, man, that looks dope. Let me check that out. So I went there a couple times, and I was really just loving the vibe. I was loving the spirit and the talent of everyone there. Such a good time, and it actually inspired me. It got me to writing, something I hadn't done in 2 decades. And I got all excited. I said, man, I'm gonna try my hand at this. I'm gonna get up on the stage at the Cypher, So even though I've been there a couple times, I kind of didn't know exactly how it went, but I got there real early, and I got my name on the list. Now, Cypher's supposed to start at 9, so usually if you get there anywhere before 8:57, that means you're there real early, and I think I was there at about 8 o'clock. But I was like the second person on the list. And then they start calling people up. They call the first person. I'm thinking, oh, I think they're going to call me next. And then they call the second person, and it ain't me. I'm like, that's all right. They must have put someone else on the list. And they call the third person. It ain't me. The fourth person, fifth person, and I'm like, I know I put my name on that list. Like, what happened? The whole night goes by. The feature comes up, and after the feature, like half the place empties out, and then they got a few stragglers, and finally I realized, like, yeah, they ain't gonna call me up. So I left, and I was a little butthurt. I was like, I spent all this time working on this poem, on She Said. I was so proud of myself, and I started writing again. Look at me. But I left a little butthurt. And I don't think I ever would have been back, except that on Facebook, I had liked or followed whatever the Cypher page. And there was this dude named Clinton that was, at that time, kind of maintaining the page. And he put up something about, like a week later, about, hey, I'll come out to the Cypher. We'd love to have you come up. Hey, sign-ups at this time. We'd love to, hear your poetry, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't think there was any point in doing it, but what the hell? I just wrote a little message there on Facebook. I said, well, that's funny, because I was there last week, and I was like the second dude on the list, and no one could call my name. And I honestly thought that's the last I'd ever hear of it. But to his credit, like, he reached out, like, he pinged me one-on-one, and he was like, hey, I'm really sorry about this. I'm trying to make sure we don't skip over people. I'm trying to make sure we don't leave people out. And I don't think if he'd hit me up, I ever would have come back. If he hadn't hit me up, I don't know if I ever would have even found any of the other poetry things going on in Jacksonville. I don't know if I'd know Ant. I don't know if I'd know Moses. I don't know if I'd know anyone in Jacksonville in this scene. But he did hit me up, and that was cool. He was just trying to communicate and make it right. Now, people watching this, a lot of people know who I'm referring to when I talk about Clinton. Clinton's dead. That sounds kind of harsh to say it that way, I know. Kind of brutal. But it's the truth. Clinton was younger than me. He's gone. And just recently, he's nowhere near gone, of course, but our beloved Ant suffered a pretty catastrophic injury. So all this is to say that, now he's nowhere near gone, but so don't come get me, Ant. But all this is just to say, I know it's trite. I know it's cliche to say it, but, tomorrow's not promised to any of us. Tonight's not promised to any of us. Next hour is not promised to any of us. So you gotta love on the people you're with, because you don't know if this might be the last time I spit this poem. Yeah, I know you're thinking, ooh, what a tragedy, but still, it might be the last time I ever get in front of a mic. I don't know. So keep that in mind. I want you to keep that in mind through the whole night, because most of you watching know about Ant, know about his scenario from the last couple months. He is Verbal Essence. Verbal Essence was probably, I think it was actually, it was the second other poetry night that I ever heard of. And I only heard of it because Ant actually came up to me one night after I was at Cypher and said, hey, have you heard about Verbal Essence? You should come over there. So I started going to 3 layers. Why am I Babnleon AD? Well, most people don't even know that. Most people just know me as Adam. But it was Ant that said to me at, like, I don't know, the 3rd or 4th time I got up on stage, he said, yeah, we need to get you like a poetry name. You got to have like a poet name. So I got Babnleon AD. Although first couple times I went up by that, everyone's like, who's this Babnleon AD? And finally Seven's like, oh, that's Adam. That's just Adam. So I don't know, Babylon AD, Adam, I don't really care. You can call me whatever. But the number's all on your screen. I want you to give till it hurts, and then give a little more, because our brother, his family, they need our support. And it's a sad thing that in this country that we're in, when you have a catastrophic injury, this is what it comes down to. So unfortunately, sometimes you just have to lean on the people you know. But nevertheless, hit that up. So I don't want to preach at you all night, although I'm about to preach at you because I'm going to hit you up with a little something else. There's She Said. More She Said. More She Said. I don't really need my notes on this, but I'm going to pull them up anyway. I know I'm screwing up the camera angle. But I'm going to tell you a little story. And we're going to start this story with something that I call Preacher Man. Like a lot of my poems, not all of my poems, but like a lot of my poems, this is based actually on a real person. This is based on someone who was downtown. I doubt he's there anymore. But I knew people, other people that worked downtown who would tell me, I know that guy. I have seen that guy. So this right here is Preacher Man. Preacher Man stands on the street corner and yells obscene bits of scripture at everybody.
Yeah, hold on, give me a second.
What's up?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be stopped?
Okay.
Am I supposed to be stopped? We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. Oh, okay. Like I was confused. Like, should I dance? You know, okay, we won't do that. All right, we'll try this again. Preacher Man. Preacher Man stands on the street corner and yells obscene bits of scripture at everybody, at anybody. He tells me that his God is stricter. He tells me that I'm going to hell, as if he's the predictor. And then he yells at me to get the hell off his sidewalk. And just when I'm beginning to grasp his message, he engages in some odd kind of side talk with somebody, with nobody. His hands gesture wildly, but his feet are anchors, counterbalanced against his feverish rancor, holding him to this particular slab of concrete as a sandbar holds a supertanker. And as Moses parted the Red Sea, he divides the stream of pedestrians effortlessly. Bankers and secretaries squeeze by awkwardly, trying to avoid the creepy power of his empty glare. But as I stand there, I realize that he is someone's son. And in some young mother's eyes, he was once her chosen one. And there had to be others who saw so much promise in him. Friends and families who could not foresee the dramas in him. There were those who would have written sagas for him. Somebody out there was his playmate. And somebody out there was his first date. Someone who adored his every trait. Somebody who adored his every trait. He wasn't always someone you had to tolerate. There was a time when his spirit was still straight, when he had thoughtful words and insights to donate, but now he just rails against the shapeless demons of his mind. Globules of acrid spit fly from his lips as angry damnation fluidly transmits from one passerby to another. While the others try desperately to ignore him, I am utterly transfixed by the psychotic nature of his spasms and tics. His words are not his own. His motions are overblown. The world he inhabits is utterly unknown, a world in which he is utterly alone. Maybe his God comforts him. But it's a God that was long ago disowned by the lawyers and the executives who called this skyline their home. Yuppies who absorb his baritone words as water is absorbed by a stone. And as I watch him there, it occurs to me that he has probably been someone's husband. He must have loved and lost and loved again. Someone saw him as a better man, so much more than just a beggar man. Somewhere there are scrapbooks filled with his old snapshots kept by a woman who never forgot. And he may not have been an astronaut, and I'm sure he never bought a yacht, but he was still part of someone else's plot before his sanity fled and his mind was shot. And that woman still cherishes his picture. And she remembers a time when he wasn't screaming scripture, long before he became a homeless fixture on this barren urban landscape. The oppressive summer heat bakes his leathery skin, or at least that small portion that can be seen from within his flannel shirt and his wool sweater and his raggedy winter coat. Clothes hanging so loose as to illustrate that he is painfully thin. Every movement of his bundled arm emits the aromas of sweat and urine and gin, wafting over through the thick summer air like the smell of a prostitute covered in sin. Walmart bags, tied strategically to his arms and legs, apparently hold his holiness within. And every mark on his weathered face is a roadmap of where he's been. But as I watch him, I realize that there's a good chance he's someone's father. And if this was my dad, would I even engage? Would I even bother to remember a time when he gave me love and affection? Or would I just try to forget him now as some type of embarrassing imperfection? Somewhere there are people who think of this man during their moments of quiet introspection. And when they look back at their childhood now, there is an odd intersection between the preacher man that we see today and the man who once gave them direction. Do they admit what he's become, or do they simply claim that their father's dead? It's far too easy to leave family secrets unsaid, and it must be painful to see him as your figurehead. So, do they even know if he has a bed? And late at night, do they know where he lays his head? As I walk away, his voice trails off in the relentless summer heat, and I know that as I sleep safe in my bed, he'll be sleeping on the street. His is an arduous life, stuck on endless repeat. Every day he battles that which he cannot defeat, neuroses crowding his mind that will not take a back seat. And you might think that you can comfort him, but his anxiety will only increase. So rather than try to fix him, I've come to appreciate his repetitive masterpiece, because the preacher man has a mission that, while flawed, will never cease. One quick story on that. Several years ago, Aunt invited me to this kind of cozy, semi-private kind of poetry show. I think there were like 12 or 13 of us, and I'm spitting this poem. And there's a young lady there, a really short lady, I remember her, and she had on these hiking boots and she, like Timberlands, and she started, I don't know, feeling the words, you know. She was really feeling it. She was feeling it so much that, like, I'd look around at people as I was spitting, and then it looked like almost like she was going to well up and cry, and then I had to stop looking at her, because if I started looking at her, it was going to, like, trigger some kind of weird, like, sentimental emotion in me, too. So I had to just kind of keep her out of my peripheral vision. I'm sorry for that. But the story I want to tell you now is the idea of Preacher Man. I don't know who Preacher Man was. I don't know what his name is. I don't know how he got to where he was. I don't know how he became the guy who rails against people on the street and screams aberrant little pieces of scripture that don't fit together. But there had to be a journey, a painful journey, a long journey. So I guess what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to think a little bit in terms of how does someone become that preacher man? Because at some point, someone actually thought he was kind of normal. At some point, a lot of other people realized he wasn't. So maybe when he was younger, he had chemical problems. Maybe he had mental problems from the start. to say. But this is somewhere I could see a preacher man being. You see, I got a problem. Because someone on the internet is wrong. And I know that I could set them straight, but first I gotta set down this bong. It was around here somewhere. Oh, wait, that's right. It's in my hand. I should probably just sit here for a minute before I try to stand, but that song, it's spinning around my head on a loop that's not too long. It's a loop that won't go away till it's gone. You know the loop. It goes shoop, shoop, ba-doop, shoop, ba-doop, shoop, ba-doop, ba-doop, ba-doop. Okay, maybe I'm getting a little loopy. I should probably just lay down, but I'm still thinking about that groupie because she's just one of the prettiest things I've found tonight. In the back of this shitty bar with the 2-for-1 specials on Crown and the cheap plastic toilet seats that are cracked and brown. And yeah, she's short a few teeth, but you can only tell when she frowns. And there's that loop again, but it's not the same shoop again. It's more like a whoop whoop again, and that's the sound of the police. Wait, no, that ain't right. That's the sound of Charisse. That is her name, right? It was Charisse, or is it Latrice? Jeez, God, I could be frickin' Maurice for all I know. And when did this place start playing hip-hop? Or is this not the place I thought? I hope so, because they got my card on file. Well, okay, to be more exact, they got someone's card that they could reconcile. Or is that the place down the road about a mile? I'm sure I've been here before, but it's kind of peculiar for a joint that I supposedly hit up a lot. And how did that internet asshole find me at this spot? I gotta stop using this phone. It's hot. And I gotta stop checking in everywhere I go. And was I on GPS the whole while? The last thing I need is another agent following me. But Maurice, he can follow me. But he's gotta bring his own weed, or speed, or whatever it is that they sell on the streets these days to feed Republican greed. I should probably leave, but the bartender's still bitching about my tab, and I believe that I could probably weave my way out the back door, but there's a crack whore blocking my way to the cab. And what the hell did she give me that smack for? All I did was ask her about that scab. I could ask her to explain, but it'd probably only make her attack more, and it's probably just best if I sidestep this hole like a fiddler crab. And I may not be stepping anywhere, but sidestepping only makes my back sore. And I may not be stepping anywhere if I can't find some munchies to grab, but I can't seem to find my way to the snack store. Maybe that guy will give me the right direction. But the closer I get, the more he looks like an agent. Another nameless clone in a white coat, trying to give me another injection while I'm laying face down on the pavement. But as the shadows change their inflection, I don't know, maybe he's just another vagrant. Should I just walk past him? He doesn't really seem to be giving me any attention, and the chase, well, it appears to have gassed him, but it does nothing to relieve my apprehension. I'm sure he's calling for backup. Now see, my therapist swears that it's just part of my inner tension. It's part of the karmic debt that I've racked up. A sea of conflicts that are all part of my own invention. But the store clerk, he doesn't appear to be in my mind. He's yelling something to me in Hindi that's beyond my comprehension. And he could stand there and scream until the sun rises, but it's not my fault that my card was declined. Our financial masters are always full of surprises, and there's no way for me to do what my shrink advises when my meds are so hard to find. Maybe he ain't speaking Hindi. Could he possibly be speaking English? Why can't I process what he verbalizes? And I really think I should just get out of here before the agent arrives. But this cardboard display would look fabulous in my kitchen. I asked him how much it cost, but I don't think he likes what I'm pitching. And that loop. Oh, I can hear the lights. The relentless buzz is on overdrive. And The agents are on their way to deprive me of that beef stick for which I've been itching. And that loop, it's calling me home. It's the loop it plays in my head like a drone with drum kits and saxophones. It's a loop that's heard by me alone. And it's telling me to leave before the situation gets overblown because that internet asshole is still wrong. And I'm going to let him know and set him straight just as soon as I find my phone. I'm going to see how much we can litter everything up tonight. It's decades of writing right there. Not that it would always come across as such. So let's talk again about Preacher Man. Even if he has issues as a younger man, he can take other steps. He can control some of his impulses. He can get on the right meds. Maybe after a while he gets himself a steady job. Maybe he even finds himself a nice little wife. Maybe even has some kids. Maybe he starts to feel like he's kind of moved past those insurrections in his mind that were there when he was younger. But life comes at you fast. Things don't always go as they're planned. And eventually, that great family he thought he was building with that wife starts to disintegrate. As she sits across from me, I watch her fidgeting restlessly, shuffling coasters between her fingers as compulsion strips away her dignity. Her body is rigid, but her shoulders are limp as the weight of her burden erodes our relationship. I observe as she squints, as the thoughts rise up to the surface, a flinch, as she struggles to define her expression, a wince. Feeling defeated, she retreats to her core again. The silence is only broken by the tinkling of ice in my whiskey, and by the wispy shredding of napkins that happens efficiently and quickly. She tears them into identical strips and stacks them fiercely with a careful attention to detail that she has never afforded to me. The silverware is severely aligned, and each of her movements is eerily designed to preserve the only corner of her world that she controls with absolute certainty. She begins to speak, but only manages to mumble. I try to engage, but her world starts to crumble with every word that tumbles from my mouth. I press her for her hand acquires a tremor, and she visibly recoils at my tenor. I press her for answers, but it makes me the aggressor, pushing her ever closer to panic, a panic that simmers in her like an ember. Feeling helpless before her like a beggar, I give up the fight and retreat altogether. She offers her hand, not in tenderness, but as a trap set and sprung by the treacherous. I grab it and it feels cadaverous, a touch that affords me no deference. I don't know where she wants to be, but I know that I am not her preference. I portray a sense of warmth, of gentleness, but as I do, her shallow breath loses its resonance and her palms acquire a clamminess that I have never felt before. Every pore of her skin screams escape, as though the touch of my hand is akin to rape. Facing her repulsion, I start to deflate, and rather than fight, I evacuate back into my corner of the booth. She taps the table repeatedly with a cadence that belies her meekness, as though she's trying to complete a sequence heatedly. Each of my gestures interrupts her focus, causing her to respond freakishly and forcing her to reboot the process fatiguingly with a frustrated sigh. Waiting for the ritual's end is futile, but halting it only fuels her disapproval. I confront her compulsions, but I'm met with refusals, and the bitterness between us spawns the accrual of ugliness that underlays her condition. The meal that I eat offends her. The mere sound of my voice upends her. The color of my jacket apprehends her. The tone of my words condescends her. The touch of my hand discontents her. The topic I discuss only extends her anxiety, and the man I become now only prevents her from reaching her hopes and dreams. Every empty gaze I receive from her makes me wonder why I haven't taken leave of her. And it baffles me to think that I was once interweaved with her. There was a time when I thought that all could be achieved with her, but now all I know are dinners that are grieved with her. As we head to the car, I try to walk by her side as though we're a couple, a loving husband and bride. But she takes great pains to ensure the divide between us is only multiplied. And as I absorb yet another hit to my pride, it is clear to me that she could not abide the thought that she might reside anywhere within my presence. And as we settle into the car, I can see that she's mortified, that she'd rather be crucified than spend another minute alongside me. The ride home is an exercise in distraction. I listen to the banal contraption of talk radio while she feeds her attraction to Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram and any other proxy for real interaction. Each of us is a singular faction, searching in vain for our own lonely satisfaction. There was a time, so long ago, when we both had compassion, when conversation between us was more than a transaction. But every word we speak now only leads to retraction, so it's easier to stay silent than to risk a reaction. I used to believe that she had an affliction, that the friction between us could be cured by prescription, but years of silent contrition have taught me the folly of that position. You see, there is only one way to secure her remission, and it requires the removal of my implicit opposition. Because there are no others who make her freeze. And when she's alone, she feels totally at ease. It's only in my presence that she starts to wheeze. And though there are no guarantees, it doesn't take much expertise to see that I'm her catalyst. I'm her adjutant. I am her disease. When I did that one night at Cypher, this lovely woman I hadn't met before, she comes up to me right off the stage and she says, "If she doesn't want you, screw her." I thought that's nice. Of course, she doesn't even know who this person is, but I guess I was convincing. I'm going to stop real quick because given the spirit of the day and the spirit of these times, it's important that you not forget what I led this off with. That I hope you're enjoying my little poems. I hope they are entertaining on some level. But there are directions on the screen as to how you can help our friend Ant. And I want each one of you to take heed of that. In today's American society, this is unfortunately how we deal with catastrophic incidents. And I know that Ant won't tell you it's catastrophic because he's too good a man and too strong a man to say that. But I think a lot of other people would call this catastrophic. So please give something, because thoughts and prayers are nice. And again, I know Ant wouldn't say this because he's a strong Christian man. But thoughts and prayers ain't going to get done. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to build a ramp in his house. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to get a lift to his car. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to help with some of the issues that he and Lakeisha and the rest of the family are going to have to deal with. So, money talks. Even if it's $5. $5 talks. $10 talks twice as much, I guess. Even if you've already given. I know, like, you think, oh, I've done it. Okay, I got on there and I gave my $20 or my $50, whatever. Has payday come back? Because if it has, help my brother out. Seriously, he needs it. His family needs it, even though he is strong like bull in a crazy, insane sort of way. But check that out. And if you are someone who's tuned in because you know me and you think, I don't know who Ant is. Well, I'm telling you, you don't have to know who Ant is. I'm telling you, he needs your support. He needs help. So if you like me at all, a little bit, even a little bit, help him. All right? So I'll get off that preaching, but I want to make sure that we pound that home tonight because it's important. So Preacher Man has had some marital problems, and she's gone. But he's got his kids. Or does he? Eventually he finds out that even custody is malleable. I never used to believe in ghosts. The specter of people long gone and things never meant to be was not a burden that was laid upon me. Twilight was never terribly dour, and midnight was not a witching hour, but the older I get, the more I cower at the growing and ever-present power of memories that are pushed too far beneath the surface. As I travel through life, the ghosts, they surround me. They highlight the relationships that I cannot see. They dance and they sing, they bite and they sting. They dredge up the memories that I've been ignoring. And they mock me, even as those memories grow misty. All poignant remembers of love become history, and those ghosts, they multiply far too quickly. The ghosts always attack when I least expect it. Everyday objects are now all infected with the hopes and the dreams that are too long neglected. The chair where she sat. The piano he played. The games we enjoyed. The card that he made for me. When that spirit comes around, I beat it back. I check it. But the ghosts have a presence that must be respected, and their constant surveillance leaves me dejected, forcing me to consider just how I'm affected. They hide in the shadows and they wait for the moment when my head is too cloudy and my thoughts are not cogent. Their timing is brutal. My defenses are futile, and once they attack, there is no useful way to deal with that pain. Confronting the tormentors triggers bouts of depression, but ignoring them creates an endless succession of self-destructive escapades aimed at the suppression of all that haunts me. I'm assured by others that the haunting inevitably fades. But rather than waning, their power is gaining, and it seems that no level of distraction or training lessens the grip that they hold on my mind. And while I'm maintaining this facade of normality, others can see that my defenses are straining. They can't see the ghosts, but they can see that I'm straying ever further from the goals that I once was attaining. And the longer I try to sustain this grind, the more I've become hopelessly resigned to the prison to which the more I become hopelessly resigned that the prison to which I'm confined cannot be escaped because it cannot be defined. And as I run from the ghosts, I work to spawn more because the wounds I inflict on others ensure that I will have my ghosts forevermore. Every friend that I ignore, every lover whom I show the door, every heart that I leave shattered on the floor guarantees that I will have new ghosts forevermore. And while the ghosts, they won't abandon me. At times, they're all that comforts me. Silent partners keeping me company. I never used to believe in ghosts, but now I know that they're part of me. They have become and will continue to be the darker side of my reality. So there goes ghosts. So Preacher Man is not in a good way. Preacher Man doesn't have his wife. Preacher Man doesn't have his kids. That doesn't mean Preacher Man's down for the count. He can try to put his energy in other places. He can try to take on social mores. He can try to fight for something else that's important to him. Maybe it's racial justice. Maybe it's political justice. And for a while, at least, that gives him a way to vent his spleen. I'm here to put you all on notice, so you got no right to act surprised. While you were under electoral hypnosis, the enemy goose-stepped to a White House prize. And now that alternative facts pass for news, the revolution will not be televised. Because the rebels were replaced with sitcom crews, and the media have all been anesthetized. You see, I'm here to hand out indictments. Maybe you think you're on the right side, so now you're full of excitement. But when it mattered, your voice was nullified. Because on election day, you were silent. And simply by doing nothing at all, you paved the way for a tyrant. White women, I'm looking at you. Would you vote for a man who grabs you in the pussy if that man was a black or a Muslim or a Jew? You can cling to the quaint views of your fathers, and you can clutch your Bible against all that bothers, but you voted for the very same evil that your forefathers overthrew. Black folk, I'm looking at you. You came out in droves for Obama, but you couldn't be bothered to stop this coup. And when he's tired of badgering Muslims and gays, when he's got you all in the sunken place, it's only then that you'll realize just how thoroughly you're screwed. Middle class. I'm looking at all of you. You trusted your future to a billionaire? But he's cashing campaign checks against accounts that you overdrew. And does he represent the Jesus to which you give prayer? Or are you just content to be part of his social media crew? White men, you knew I was coming for you. With your dad bods and your Fox News hairdos. You wouldn't trust that man alone with your daughter, but you'll vote for any white guy who's rich. And as you lined up at the polls like sheep to the slaughter, the Russians treated you like their own little bitch. That sound that you hear is a steady tick-tocking. A timer counting down till it's your life they're shocking. You might think that you're immune, but soon they'll come knocking on your door. Because a fascist's only skill is to grow hate. He sows dissension between you and your brothers, and then he builds walls to separate. You might be content to sit by idly and wait, but I'm handing out these indictments. I'm holding all of us accountable for each of the dictator's incitements. Now that he's seen the throne, don't come asking me where your rights went. Because when he's destroyed everything that you hold dear, and he's drained your account of its last cent, you'll remember this day when you look around and you realize that there's nothing left but this indictment. Maybe preacher man gets some kind of release from his social justice work. Maybe he feels good to rail at the moon. And it still keeps them together for a little while. My girl says that this is my therapy. And you know, I think she's right. Because I'm adrift in a world of disparity, and these words are all I have to ignite a dream that I can somehow find clarity without resorting to social media fights. I could pay a shrink $100 an hour, but that's a hefty cost to explain that black lives never really mattered. In a doctor's office is just another kind of ivory tower when the lives of people I know are shattered. So I'm sorry if I'm taking I'm sorry if I'm taking the shine off that flower, and I'm sorry if my words don't make you feel flattered. But I'm going to cough up all the bile I've devoured, and when I'm done, you can return to your primetime, politically correct, trigger-free, happy-go-lucky banter. Because I don't know of any better therapy when guns are more plentiful than birth control. And I got no recourse but to stand here and get free when they're building pipelines from here to the North Pole. And if you think that assault rifles are more important than clean drinking water, then maybe, just possibly, you should reassess your goals. Whatever happened to the days when we exported wheat? Now we only send troops to Iraq. We prop up warlords while our president tweets because there's nothing holier than the price of Blackwater stock. And while it rises and fills those pockets on Wall Street, we'll be holding the bag in the next market shock. So I'm going to grab this mic and spit it. Because the next time a brother screams, "I can't breathe," I'll have to look my friends in the eye and admit it. And white folk will fashion new excuses to weave while they turn their heads and permit it. And the families of victims will gather to grieve as the courts will always acquit it. And the administration continues to lie and deceive as long as they have mindless stooges like Conway and Christie and Giuliani to smile and transmit it. Maybe this is self-indulgent, but I got to get some things off my chest. How do you lose by 3 million votes and then tell me that your people are the ones that are oppressed? It was your grandparents and your wives that came over on those boats. But you think that immigration is the problem to address. And when the wall fails, will you start digging a moat? Or will you just find a new minority to suppress? What would happen if instead you decided to devote all those billions to the poor folk that you so obviously detest? You see, this mic, this stage, this sound hall is the only place that I know where truth doesn't cower in the light of day. And you can read your Bible in the Lord's holy glow, but Jesus never told you to send refugees away. And there's nothing in that book that will overthrow the established scientific fact that global warming's here to stay. So excuse me while I get some of this therapy, because I ain't got $100 an hour to pay. So maybe while he's trying to keep it together with his social activism, Preacher Man inevitably comes in contact with a lot of white people. We all know how good those white folk are. We all know they're there to help him. We all know they're there to stop racial injustice. We all know that they're there for equality. Right? So I'm glad to hear that you're white and woke. And I probably believe that you're one of them better folk. And I don't know. Maybe you really do get it. Maybe you've learned to own up to our past and now you've learned to regret it. But justice ain't designed to help you clear your conscience. And the more you confess, the more you claim to love the oppressed, the more I see that your slogans are only designed to augment your own insecurities because you still provoke. You still live a life based on mirrors and smoke, and no matter how much you protest, I still wonder if you got any clue about what it truly means to be woke. You see, wisdom doesn't come on a t-shirt. And liking my post won't return what we won't erase centuries of hurt, because activism doesn't happen on Facebook. And liking my post won't return what we took. So you can offer up your thoughts and your prayers, but those words just sound like gobbledygook. And you can make your case until you're blue in the face, and you can tell me all day that you're alert, but I don't really care about what's on your t-shirt. Hey, maybe you really are woke, but I got suspicions that your moral compass is broke. And the more you have to tell me you're down, the more you brag about friends who are brown, the more that I suspect that you're on the closet racist squad. And as you prance around in your equality crown, I see clearly through your crumbling facade. If your daughter brought home a brother, would you have a stroke? Or is that discrimination the kind that's sanctioned by God? Can you relax in a room where you're the only white bloke? Or would that situation make you feel odd? Maybe you think you're under attack, but this is just a poke. Only you can say if you're full of smoke. And only you know what's in your heart and what you meant when you told that joke. Maybe it came across all wrong. Maybe you just misspoke. So I'm not trying to tell you how to act, but if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be spouting off to everyone about how I'm so woke. You see, justice ain't sold on Amazon Prime. And you ain't walked a mile in their shoes just because you listened to some rhyme. And your YouTube channel may be sounding the alert, but silent white activists make up a very long line. So while I'm glad that justice is what you're trying to assert, you're trying to skip dinner to go straight to dessert. You can holler about how much others' lives are worth. And you can brag about your own spiritual rebirth. But your heart's not exposed through your Instagram memes. It can only be proven through your deeds and your works. So I don't really care about what's on your t-shirt. Trying to find causes can give you purpose, trying to find causes can also just make you tired. Sometimes I wonder how often Preacher Man was tired. And I don't just mean when he was out of his mind. It's a lot to try to figure out when you don't have your own mooring in the world. I don't know. I don't know anymore what to say to my friends. I don't know how to explain that justice depends on the color of your skin and the money you can spend. I don't know. I don't know how it all went to shit. I don't know why we argue about whose life is legit. I don't know why no one listens when I spit. There are no breadcrumbs leading homeward. No official record of the first time this occurred. I don't know any white folk who don't want the last word. I don't know any black folk who don't feel slurred. I don't know how we find peace when justice is deferred. I don't know. I don't know how I lived so long in the dark. How I blindly ignored every racist remark. How I brushed aside bigotry and as harmless snark. All this crap around me seemed so hidden, so subdued. But now I'm swimming in kerosene under a shower of sparks. And all I want is to make it right. But I got no confidence because I know my people. We'd rather vote for Trump because my brothers are sheeple. They don't vote for your rights. They lean on their privilege while they hide in their steeples. And they'll risk absolutely nothing as they watch through their peepholes. But how do we bridge this gap? I don't know. I don't know how to solve problems that I never even knew existed. I don't know how to help people that all my ancestors resisted. I can't find common ground when all of my logic's twisted. I can't be that voice of wisdom when my blood assisted in your demise. So where lies the path to compromise? I don't know. But what I do know is this. We can't continue on this path. We can't build a society based on hatred and wrath. We can't blame our ancestors for the aftermath. We can't treat our brothers like psychopaths. We got to own this shit. We got to learn to put ourselves in another man's shoes. We got to realize that our kids learn from us how to choose between brotherhood and stereotypes that are all untrue. We can't tell them that we didn't know what to do. We can't tell them our message was misconstrued. We can't wash it away with some kind of equality shampoo. We can't expect them to cleanse our societal residue. We can't be shocked when they drink from the malice we've brewed. We can't magically grant them a respect for others when it's a respect that we ourselves never knew. All we can do is stop the cycle. Right here, right now, with no excuses. But how do we do that? I don't know. I just don't know. Fun little side note about that piece. I was home visiting family in Michigan. And they had an open mic night up there. So I said, well, why not? And I got there early, as I usually do. Too early. But I sat at the bar. I had a sandwich. I pulled up my phone. And I started writing. And by the time the show even started, I had a brand new piece called I Don't Know. Yeah, I even got up and read it there that night. I think it was well received. And then I went home that very same night, and saw the news about another black man shot in the street at a traffic stop in Oklahoma. I don't know. So Preacher Man's faith is waning. Preacher Man is holding on, but maybe not like he could. But there are other tragedies. There are car wrecks. There are deaths. There are shootings that can break a man in two. gonna sing tonight, did you? Oh yeah, it's gonna be a treat. Bang, bang, I shot you down. Bang, bang, you hit the ground. Bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, that's how I shot you down. Bang, bang. No sound is more American than the sound of a mother's pain. And no image is more American than the gun from which it sprang. Now, your elected leaders will try to fool you. They'll paint gun control as some liberal voodoo while they claim that NRA headquarters is where freedom rang. While they brace themselves against the boogeymen of brown immigrants and black gangs. While they tell you that tree's strange fruit is just a picnic and some overhang. Because they know ultimately that they can subdue you. They melted your chains into shiny pistols with which they overthrew you. And now there's nothing left to hear and nothing left to be sang but bang, bang. You can organize your boycotts and your grassroots resistance. Go ahead. I'll wait. But that goose-stepping march you hear approaching somewhere off in the distance is the sound of 200 million Americans looking to pick a fight. Because there's nothing worse in this universe than a white man bitching about his rights. So I'll hold your hand as together we pray, and I'll swear that Jesus is the one I obey, but I'll burn a cross on your lawn tonight. And as a corpse, and I'll wave my Blue Lives Matter, pistol grip, signed and numbered action figure in the eerie glow of the firelight. And when the corpses pile up, I'll blame it on you, because you stubbornly refuse to underwrite the Confederate, racist, hateful statues to my parasite ancestors. And while the cross goes up in flame, you'll only hear one refrain: bang, bang. There's no legislation that can possibly contain the xenophobia of those who fear a black dystopia, of those who will do everything in their power to restrain the unbridled, the unchecked, the unconscionable flower of black youth. My bullets are the ultimate remedy to the power of democratic truth. And you can arrest me today if you think that helps. But assault rifles are oh so easy to obtain. And while I exterminate your children, the Second Amendment shields me like polyurethane in the driving rain. And as I stockpile ammo like a Rambo commando, your kids will still be slain for jaywalking, for surrendering, for eating Skittles, for wearing a hoodie, for playing in the park with a train, for selling cigarettes outside a bodega, for possessing trace amounts of cocaine. But there's no particular political campaign that will protect you from the chaotic, violent, inhumane sound of bang, bang. Bang, bang, I shot you down. Bang, bang, you hit the ground. Bang, bang, that awful sound. Bang, bang, that's how I shot you down. Well, I am about to wrap things up. I'm sure I don't need to remind you, because I'm sure everyone has raced in to put more money in that GoFundMe. Right? Yeah. Go ahead. You can hit pause. I mean, I know you're watching this after the fact anyway. You can hit pause. Go ahead. Just come back. We'll wait for you. Go get the money. I don't care if it's $7. I don't care if it's $2.50. But unfortunately, this is the state of our system. And we know a good man and his family that need that support. So please, help me out. Help Ant out. Help his family out. So I'm going to finish with just a little bit of a rumination, I guess, on how tragedy can break you. It could have you like Preacher Man, yelling obscenities and scripture, yeah, put those two together, on the street corner. It could have you homeless. It could have you out of your mind. But we all know that doesn't have always happen. In fact, We know someone dear to the show with whom that is not happening. So, Preacher Man's path was not predetermined. We have choices. We have people that can help. And this might be just a bit of an observation on how things can otherwise go. What does it take to make a good man be still? You could calculate the exact force that's needed to snap his spine. But is there an equation to determine the pressure required to subdue his will? And is there any way to measure the depth of his mind or the breadth of his skill? If you embezzle all of his treasure, will it affect the meat cage in which he's confined? Or will he still endeavor to bring others pleasure with a resolve that no tyrant can kill? What does it take to make a good man be still? Can you simply beat him into compliance? Or will his scars only serve to protect him? Can you punish his every act of defiance, or will your discipline fail to affect him? Can you gaslight him till he questions the science, or will he reject the lies with which you infect him? Can you poison those who make up his alliance, or will his friends and family refuse to reject him? Can you convince him that you are worthy of his reliance? Or will he remember you as the one who shipwrecked him? Can you drag him to the curb like a broken down appliance? Or will the breath of his spirit inevitably resurrect him? Our enemies want nothing more from us than that we simply be subdued. Because there's no need to fight a broken down knight who's sulking in a defeated mood. So the simplest path to oppression is to silence the vital act of expression with which we're all imbued. Our depression is the first step in our dispossession if we allow our grievances to become our food. They got no need for aggression once we commit the internal transgression of convincing ourselves that we're already screwed. That's why there is no greater act of cruel and violent insurrection than to mess with a good man's attitude. So what does it take to make a good man be still? The simple truth is that a good man is always still, because that good man is still here. His legs can be paralyzed by fate, but he will not be paralyzed by fear. He knows that all his triumphs would be incomplete if he were to simply disappear. So he still keeps others upbeat. Well, he's facing a new frontier, and he still refuses to accept defeat while God's voice is still in his ear. He's still grinding. He's still peace of minded. He's still got no intention of compromising. Yeah, I know. He's got trials. Like we all got trials. He's got people around him who are in denial. But he refuses to be filled with anger and bile. He still launches each day with an eager smile. And he still graces the paparazzi with his own personal style. And he still knows that his life is vital and worthwhile because more than anything, he's still here. To show. Like I said, hit up the GoFundMe, hit up the Cash App. For those people who know me who are watching this, when have I ever asked you for any kind of financial assistance on anything? So help my friend out. He needs it. He's going to have challenges ahead of him. And I should also mention, I didn't say enough about him, but the fact is, this is his space. This is what he has created. And he's continuing to create. So it's important at times like these that we support the people we love. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for the awesome technical assistance. And thank you to Ant for putting this all together, for making Verbal Essence what it is, for inviting some out-of-place white guy over to a show 9 years ago for telling me that I need a poetry name. So now I'm Babylon AD. It's okay. I think you always just called me Adam. But it's all appreciated. It's all good. And thank you. Thanks for tuning in.